Isn't it time that we get a boost of energy? For so long, Mars has been in Gemini. It entered Gemini on August 20th. It stayed there all the way up until March 25th because it went retrograde. And that was really scattering us. We were very, very distracted, but it really, really gave us an invitation to consider how we communicate and our thoughts really create and, really bring about our actions and call our actions into being. When we have thoughts, when we have the desire to do something, then that is important. But what's also important is how we decide to respond. And Mars retrogrades are all about that. They're going over how we are moving forward, how we are asserting ourselves, initiating, and reviewing the actions that we've taken in the past. So that was Mars in Gemini. And then Mars moved into Cancer. And that was really about, retreating, going home, inside yourself, really putting more emphasis on your home and family, and showing up for other people that you feel emotionally close to and that you value. Those people in your life are important to you and they really lift you up and bring you that joy and that peace and love. Mars in Cancer was about trusting our inner knowing and heading off in the direction of what feels right. But now we are getting some more fire and some more energy because on May 20th, Mars is going to head into Leo. And so this particular transit is going to last until July 10th of this year. So right before the nodes change signs, right before the North Node heads into Aries, we get Mars in Leo, and during this transit, Venus moves into Leo on June 5th. And this sets up for the whole Venus retrograde season in Leo that is going to be ongoing for, it's going to start this summer, it's going to go a little bit into the fall season, and there will be a time in June when Mars and Venus will both be in Leo. So, so much is happening here. And actually, the next time Mars is going to be in Leo, it's going to go retrograde in that sign for some time as part of its retrograde, phase. But, we'll get to that later on when that happens. But for now, we're looking at Mars in the sign. So first of all, Mars is about, as I said, asserting yourself. It is that masculine principle of, okay, I'm here, I'm going to show up, I'm going to put the work in. Here is what I have to give, and I'm not afraid to show up in the world. That's Mars energy. At worst, it can be arrogant, aggressive, and also impulsive, and really trying to, it doesn't really care about other people and just, getting up to the top of the mountain with what you want to achieve without considering other people. That's really, the downside where we can get into some shadow sides of Martian energy, but also Aries energy. And so the sun is considered exalted in the sign of Aries in astrology. So it's at a very high point. It can, I'm not going to go into that because that crosses over to a belief system of astrology that I disbelieve in. I'm not sure that I believe in planets being detriment or fall or, exaltation, all of that. I don't believe in that because it puts placements on a pedestal, and every planet and sign has its own good qualities and downsides. and every placement has its own challenges, and some are easier. Some placements are easier than others. But anyway, so the sun in Aries, which you just had from March 21st through April 20th, and now Mars is going to be in the sign that the sun rules, which is Leo. And Mars can do, wonderful things in Leo. It operates really, really strongly and proudly in Leo. And it's a really, big and loud energy. So Mars in Leo is really going to give you the courage and confidence to go after what you want. You sure of yourself, you really believing that you can do this, that you can put yourself out there and get some kind of reward. And with Jupiter and Taurus, what are you doing that is in alignment with what you value? And you can ground all of your motivation and ambition that is going to become present with Mars and Leo. So, Leo is ruled by, represented by the lion, which is very courageous, and it's all about pride. That you have the right to shine, to be who you are, and to express yourself the way that you want to. It's very confident, go get him placement. It's very bold and very determined because Leo is fixed fire. It's in the middle of the summertime, and fixed signs are in the middle of the summer. So the sun is in Leo from July 23rd through August 22nd, when, then crosses over into Virgo. And so it holds down a season, fixed signs. And around the time of the Mars ingress, or when it enters Leo, there's a lot of fixed activation with the grand fixed cross, with so many planets in Taurus and the new moon in Taurus. So much is happening in fixed signs, and Leo has the, okay, I want this, and I want to show up in this way, and I want to, travel to this place, and then move up on this particular path for my life. And I am going to be very strong and very willful and very on that path, and I'm not going to let myself steer away from that path. That's very, fixed energy. Is there's a will with fixed energy. So that's really important to discuss here. So there's a determination with this. Taking a risk also. Mars and Leo, it's a great time to really put yourself out there and to take a risk. Do something that maybe sometimes you wouldn't, do, and take a chance, take an opportunity, taking advantage of opportunities that are presented to you. But, of course, when it is right, and if you're not taking too big of a risk, or, if it's practical, if it makes sense, if you're really grounding it into reality, and if the circumstances are on point for you to, to move on that path. So, it's a fine balance, but it is about, risk taking. This Mars in Leo will be especially good for, if you have any planets in Leo, particularly personal planets, or your sun or moon, or the angles, the ascendant and midheaven in Leo. And, the other fire signs, Aries and Sagittarius, it'll also be really good for the air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And any sign from any element can benefit from this in a particular way. And it also depends on the house, the area of life that is being, that is getting a little bit of burst of energy with this placement. So, Leo is also about, I associate it with being a hero and being a leader, really stepping into that leadership role. That that you can do this, that you're in control, that you can lead others, and um, Leos make very, very strong leaders and Aries people also. So it's a great opportunity to take the lead in your life and sit in the driver's seat of your own life and steer your ship wherever you want to go. And being not afraid to be the center of attention, shine your light, be the boss in your life, unless it comes at the expense of others in your relationships. There's always a balance with this. Leo is also about heart energy, showing up with a lot of generosity, shining, putting out that heart energy, that warmth, that that spark of life that comes with Leo, and that lion or lioness energy, because Leo rules the heart, and the heart is strong, the heart is emotional, the heart is really passionate, and it is unruly. They say the heart wants what it wants, and this particular transit is very opportune for putting a little bit of fuel in your fuel tank for you to go, for you to follow your heart. And give, that's also big here. And stepping into the role as a hero, really putting yourself in a situation where it's not maybe saving other people, but maybe inspiring other people, maybe influencing other people and leading them up to greatness. Say, you can do this, I believe in you, all these positive things where you are lighting a fire under them and really motivating them and empowering them to to do what they need or want to do with their lives, to follow their dreams, to pursue their passion. I mean, all of these types of things here are huge. Turning up the fun factor, experiencing fun, joy, pleasure, because those are things that Leo is about. The fifth house, which corresponds to Leo, is romance and, dating and all those things, that it wants to make the most of this life and really take it by the balls, if you will. So, it's turning up the volume, turning up the fun factor with Leo energy, because it wants to go out there, wants to travel. It really is very materialistic. Enjoying the nice things. It really wants the high life and the life that's filled with joy. So yeah, and also you can show up for anyone in love, be it a partner or a family member, more courageously, and you may feel the need to be loved and adored, and really, assert your boundaries if you're not feeling loved. You're not feeling like you're getting that, loyalty and attention in relationships that you want to. Is also really, big here. And it's also going to be a thing that's going to be huge for the Venus retrograde this particular summer. It's about bringing more joy into your life and expressing yourself more creatively, doing what you, do, whatever it is creatively. And there's multiple ways and forms to creativity. It's not just music and art. There's a multitude and a myriad of different things. So, this is sort of a permission slip to express yourself in those ways. And it really comes from your inspiration and from your heart. you feel like you want to do this in the moment. Your heart is calling you to do this. It's that simple. This is, okay, I'm going to go and do this. Um, you know, so yeah, so getting, more specifically sort of digging into this transit as if that wasn't enough. The day that this ingresses, the day that Mars actually moves into Leo, we have Mars forming an opposition to the planet of death, destruction, the planet of things dying away, which is Pluto. Um, and so Mars rules Scorpio, and Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. It was discovered very, very recently in the broad scope of things, and so Mars is forming an opposition. So Mars in Leo, and then Mars at 0, very early degrees of Leo. Pluto at 0, very early degrees of Aquarius, and Pluto just entered Aquarius. So, these two are opposing each other. It's sort of a ping pong where one wants to go one way, the other wants to go the other way. So, Pluto in Aquarius is really all about, decentralization. So many astrologers talk about the introduction of artificial intelligence. They talk about, you know, so many different things that are largely in the mundane scope of things. More people finding more freedom, liberating themselves. And it's really moving us into the age of Aquarius. That's what, Pluto in Aquarius is, doing. And it's really having us look at technology and how, it's working out for us and how we're using it. So, Mars forming an opposition to Pluto really gives a lot of drive and power to achieve whatever goal that you want to achieve. Why not, go after what you want? And there's an incredible passion and energy with this. There's a strength that comes from Mars and Pluto. Mars and Pluto coming together is very, very strong, and really, sort of take no prisoners as an aspect. So, if, especially in fixed signs, especially with that fixed energy going on, and I know someone who actually has Mars opposite Pluto in mutable signs, in the signs of Pisces and Virgo. So that kind of, softens and, lightens it up, because Virgo's about service and, all these positive things, and Pisces is very compassionate, and it's about empathy and, the oneness of, the divinity of all things. I mean, spirituality, all these types of things. But anyway, there's strength, passion, the really stimulating with this fixed going cross happening, the need for change, the willpower to make change happen in one way or another, and the need to break out of what has been before. And this is very intense, without a doubt. I just want to say that there's a strong, very sort of kind of edgy, really, very powerful energy with this. It's assertive. It can relate itself to battles. You're fighting on the battlefield, and it may give you the willpower to win a battle. And you may find yourself being in a more competitive mood, competing for others, and you can really compete, and you can really find the tenacity to win those battles or win those competitions. It's also wonderful for martial arts. I think of this particular placement, and I think of martial arts, of what you have to do in that arena. So, that's a little bit about that aspect. Now, moving forward, On May 23rd, actually, when this is exact, is we have Mars forming an exact square to Jupiter. And I spoke about this on my video about the fixed grand cross, but this is about the get up and go, the optimism, and the energy to, achieve what you want to achieve, make something happen, get something done. It's good for, being in any kind of career, be it, business or, athletic, especially. It's great for risk taking, great for initiating brand new things. It can also be harsh. It can lend itself to being pretty, kind of a harsh, energy where you're going to stand your ground and you know, it's very assertive. This is an assertive aspect, and more people could be more assertive, and it's also a calling to be more assertive in your life, and it does give a lot of strength. But with any hard aspect to Jupiter, sometimes we can get too much. And where do you need to turn the off button, turn off the on button, and know when to draw the line and know when to moderate how you're using your strength, your strong masculine energy, which is Mars. Um, there can also be an overconfidence because Jupiter can inspire a lot of blessings and abundance and positive feelings, and it also deals with wherever Jupiter is in your chart. It sort of shows your superpower in your life. So there can be this sort of overconfidence where it may sort of go down the wrong road um, with this aspect. And you may just feel like, oh, I can do all these things, I can get all this done, and it may be too much. Too much is too much. Let's ground with all the Taurus energy. Let's focus on one thing at a time. Let's not overdo it. It doesn't have to all be done now or overnight. Taking the small steps, doing the things that are most important and valuable to you. All these things are healing remedies if the circumstance of this aspect can turn out to be pretty negative. And taking a leap of faith. But is it right to take that leap of faith? Is it right to take that risk? That may need some evaluation or reevaluation. And I've already spoken about risk taking. And with Mars and Leo, the whole conversation is about how you are using your ego. Leo is the sun, and the sun is your ego. Are you using it for good, or are you using it for bad? So, ego is, the name of the game, and the downside of Mars and Leo can be, I was reading about this particular placement, and one of the things that, an article said about this, on tarot.com I was reading, and it was saying that you can feel like you deserve all this approval, all this, confidence, all this adoration when you have not earned that. You've not put in the work. You've not done, what you needed to do, and sort of, oh, why am I not, getting the, love and attention that I want to get? And when that happens, it can also lend itself to, shouting, being very commanding, and, trying to make sure that other people give you the approval and the attention, and, so that you're on the spotlight, that you get what you want, basically. So that's one of the more shadow traits of Mars and Leo, also pertaining to people in the natal chart. So ego. I knew somebody with Mars and Leo, and when she would rage, She had a lot of aspects to Pluto in her chart. She had a lot of, I was looking at her chart. This is somebody that I knew in the past. I was looking at her natal chart. She had a lot of aspects to Pluto, which of course is really destructive, powerful energy. The energy of Pluto is very intense. And she also had Mars in Leo. And, when she would get mad, it would be so intense. And she would go on, rampages. And I would feel like I would be walking on eggshells, and I would feel holding my breath and very uncomfortable, because I would be waiting for the storm to arrive. And then the storm happened, it passed, but I still remember that storm and how it felt. So, yeah. So anyway, I thought I would just mention that. The final aspect, seeing that this is sort of a big, sort of a larger transit, is on June 26th when Mars makes a square to Uranus. And Mars square Uranus really brings out your rebellious nature, your side that wants to go it alone, beat to your own rhythm. It's really the need to do it your own way. And, I'm not going to follow, authority. I'm not going to, do what I'm supposed to do. Why should I do that? Why can't, I do my own thing? And so it can invite you to break away from any kind of limitation, anything that is holding you back, and you might be feeling more, driven, and maybe there's more of a pep in your step, and there's more of a, I know who I am, and I'm sick of following the rules, and I'm going to show up. I'm going to do my own thing, and that can be positive and negative depending upon how you're using this energy, and the circumstance of what is going on and what is transpiring in your own life. It can lend itself to acting out of impulse. Mars and Uranus. I've heard things about Mars and Uranus coming together, and it can stimulate a lot of earthquake, activation. And I know last year when Mars, and there was an alignment of Mars and Uranus, which was a conjunction in Taurus, conjunct the North Node. So that was huge on July 31st and August 1st. And Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018, really shifting what we find valuable in our own lives. And it's really, so much is going on astrologically with that. And, it gives stimulus for innovation. And originality, inventing new things. It's a great time to put your genius hat on and create something new, do something out of the box, think up a new idea and act on it, and not to hold the energy in, but let it out, express your free and creative energy. So that is all that I want to say on this particular transit. I hope that you enjoyed. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel. And I will see you in another one. Bye, everybody.